New at 10 tonight, a heartbreaking story. A 2-year-old boy is dead tonight. His twin sister in the hospital, and a man responsible for watching them is now charged with murder.
This video contains descriptions of child abuse, violence, and other distressing events that may be upsetting or triggering to viewers. Viewer discretion is strongly advised, especially for those sensitive to these topics. In the quiet suburb of Roy, Utah, a story of hope and heartbreak would come to define an entire community. What began as a family's trusting arrangement with a friend turned into a nightmare of unimaginable violence. This is the story of 2-year-old Aleister, his twin sister Lara, and the parents who loved them more than life itself, only to have their world shattered by someone they believed was safe. Aleister Clare was born on February 19, 2021, along with his twin sister Lara, to parents Justin Clare and Brittany Harmon Clare. Aleister's time on Earth was tragically short, but the joy he brought to everyone was immeasurable. Aleister was born with thick hair resembling a cute little man. He had an endearing personality and huge dimples on his cheeks. His smile lit up the room. He loved the cartoon Teen Titans Go! And his plush toy Puss in Boots. He was a true daddy's boy and loved snuggling up to his father while watching movies. His favorite blanket was blue with stars. Aleister loved chatting with his dad and mom and had a special bond with his grandma Joanne, in whose heart he held a special place. Losing Aleister has left a huge hole in the family's hearts, something they will struggle with for the rest of their lives. He was loved immeasurably and will be missed more than words can express. The purpose of this video is to share an important story, raise awareness about child protection, and emphasize the need for action to prevent such tragedies. If you or someone you know has experienced abuse, please reach out to local support services for help. Before tragedy struck, Aleister's parents were much like any other in their close-knit community. High school sweethearts who had grown up just miles apart. They chose to settle in Roy after marrying, drawn by the promise of quiet streets, good schools, and neighbors who looked out for one another. They bought a modest home on a tree-lined avenue, envisioning a future filled with backyard barbecues and the pitter-patter of tiny feet. In time, they welcomed twins, Aleister and his sister Lara. From the moment they were born, these two were inseparable. Aleister, older by a few minutes, was the more outgoing of the pair. Friends recalled him toddling around the yard, giggling loudly at each new discovery. His twin sister was quieter but just as curious, carefully watching Aleister's antics before joining in. Their parents often joked that they were a perfect balance. He was the spark, and she was the steady flame. Both children loved art time with their mom, who worked part-time at a local clinic. Using thick crayons and finger paints, they decorated the fridge with scribbles only a parent could truly appreciate. On weekends, their dad, a carpenter by trade, would bring home wood scraps for them to play with, fostering their creativity. The twins would stack blocks, build tiny houses, and squeal with delight when Dad pretended to be a giant, knocking their creations down. Neighbors often saw the twins riding in a red wagon up and down the sidewalk, flashing big smiles at everyone. Halloween was a special occasion, with the twins dressed in matching costumes. One year, they were a pair of baby pumpkins, much to everyone's delight. For Aleister's parents, life seemed bright and full of promise, filled with laughter echoing across the living room at bath time and bedtime stories read by mom or dad. Like many parents, Aleister's mom and dad occasionally needed help juggling busy schedules. They were active in the community. His mother sometimes volunteered at local events, while his father occasionally traveled for work to nearby towns. Childcare could be challenging, especially with twins, so they turned to a circle of trusted friends. Among them was 36-year-old Jonathan Allen Dunn. Dunn was known around the neighborhood as someone always willing to lend a hand. He had been acquainted with the family for a while, stepping in when last-minute babysitting was needed. He presented himself as patient, even-tempered, and fond of children. On the surface, he seemed a godsend for two hard-working parents trying to balance home and work life. But beneath that helpful demeanor, Dunn concealed a disturbing truth. In 2017, Dunn had been convicted of child abuse for violently breaking another 2-year-old's arm and leaving bruises on the child's face. He wrote what seemed to be a sincere apology letter, expressing regret and vowing to change. After serving his sentence, Dunn was released back into the community. Whether Aleister's parents fully knew the details of this conviction remains unclear. However, by the time they realized the depths of his past, it would be too late. It was supposed to be just another evening with Dunn babysitting Aleister and his sister. The parents had commitments, some say an appointment, others mention a late work shift, and they needed someone to watch the twins overnight. By all accounts, Dunn agreed without hesitation. Perhaps, for Aleister's parents, this was a relief. The kids would be with someone familiar, someone who had watched them before. Neighbors recall the sun setting over the quiet street. Children in other homes were being called inside for dinner. A sense of calm usually fell over Roy at this hour. But behind closed doors in the house where Dunn was babysitting, darkness was about to overtake any semblance of normalcy. Dunn later told investigators that the evening started with games, but his version of fun quickly spiraled out of control. Reports indicate he repeatedly punched Aleister and his twin sister, targeting their backs, chests, and sides. He pinched them in sensitive areas, including their genitals, causing excruciating pain. At some point, he threw the children onto a bed multiple times, disregarding how fragile their 2-year-old bodies were. Investigators also discovered that Dunn took a Nerf gun, designed for harmless play, and used it both as a projectile weapon, shooting at the twins, and as a blunt instrument, striking them with its butt end. The violence escalated to a chilling crescendo when Dunn pushed their small heads into the edges of a closet door frame. According to his own confession, he then used what he called a hard foam mallet to hit them on the backs of their heads, inflicting even more damage. Medical experts would later conclude that the injuries showed signs of repeated force, not a singular moment of loss of control. At some point, Dunn realized he had gone far beyond any boundary of rough play. Perhaps fear of punishment set in, or a twisted sense of guilt. Investigators believe he tried to cover his tracks by giving the children Tylenol and cough syrup, possibly hoping to mask their pain or render them less likely to cry out. However, the twins were already suffering from grievous internal injuries due to the physical and sexual abuse inflicted upon them. Between 8:30 and 9 o'clock the next morning, Dunn noticed Aleister had stopped breathing. Instead of immediately calling for an ambulance, he waited, precious minutes ticking by while Aleister's life hung in the balance. Not until 10 o'clock did Dunn finally dial 911, an unforgivable delay that further underscored the depths of his negligence. When paramedics and law enforcement arrived, the full weight of the tragedy became apparent. They found Aleister unresponsive on the front porch, showing no signs of life. Inside, his twin sister lay on a couch, covered in bruises with visible injuries to her face and body. Both children showed clear signs of physical and sexual trauma. The twins were rushed to a local hospital. Doctors and nurses worked frantically, but Aleister's injuries, consistent with prolonged, severe physical and sexual abuse, proved too extensive. He passed away shortly after arrival, leaving medical staff shaken by the brutality inflicted on such a small child. Meanwhile, his twin sister was discovered to have a brain bleed, along with extensive bruising and signs of sexual assault. She survived, but her prognosis was guarded, and her road to recovery would be long and fraught with uncertainty. News of Aleister's death hit his parents like a thunderbolt. They had simply thought they were leaving their children in trusted hands for one night.
I loved him more than life itself. I'm sorry, now I'm getting emotional.
Brittany Kunzler says she's learning to live with loss.
I don't know if you have any kids, Sarah, but I mean, from one parent to any other parent in the world, he was a good kid. He was a good boy, and I loved him with all my heart.
Her 2-year-old son, Aleister, died 8 months ago. He was abused to death.
I just don't even want to celebrate Christmas this year without him.
It was 4 days before last Christmas when it happened. Aleister and his twin sister, Laura, were staying in a Roy home with a family friend, Jonathan Dunn. Police reports say Dunn beat the children with a hard foam mallet, threw them on the bed, and gave them Tylenol, cough, and cold medicine. Dunn called police, claiming Aleister fell off a couch and wasn't breathing. When officers got there, they found Aleister on the front porch, visibly injured. Brittany got the call that day that Aleister died.
It hit me pretty hard that, my son wasn't coming home and I had my kids with me. I had Laura and Bella, and I was missing him.
It's been 8 months. While the physical trauma may have healed, Brittany says what Dunn did in December will never go away.
I just want him to rot in hell. I did not know what he was capable of. I didn't know that he would do this to our boy.
Remembering his life, learning to live in Aleister's honor.
I'm going to move on with my life and just keep my other kids protected. I want to watch them like a hawk and make sure that nothing happens. Make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. And I just want every person out there to protect their children and do not trust anybody they don't know.
In an instant, they had lost their son, and their daughter's life would never be the same. Friends described the parents as inconsolable, grappling with disbelief that someone they considered a friend could commit such a monstrous act. In the days that followed, family members spoke of Ayer's cheerful spirit and his sister's quieter, observant nature. They recalled how he would run up to strangers, arms wide open, as if everyone was a friend. They reminisced about the messy artwork, bedtime giggles, and the twin bond that seemed unbreakable until that fateful night. A neighbor tearfully recounted how the twins used to play with chalk on the sidewalk, drawing colorful flowers and shapes while their parents proudly watched from the porch. An autopsy on Aleister confirmed what first responders and doctors already knew. The child had been subjected to extensive blunt force trauma and sexual abuse. Bruises and contusions covered his torso, back, and even his small limbs. The coroner's report also found chilling evidence of pinching and internal injuries consistent with sexual assault, matching Dunn's confession of targeting the twins' genitals. It was the very definition of torture. His twin sister's injuries were equally harrowing. She suffered a life-threatening brain injury, bruises all over her body, and clear indications of sexual abuse. Doctors emphasized that the damage suggested ongoing, repeated assault rather than a single episode. Though she survived, the emotional and physical aftermath would be immeasurable. She would need therapy to heal her body and process the horror of losing her brother in such a violent manner. The Roy City Police Department launched a comprehensive investigation. Upon arriving at the scene, they found incriminating evidence throughout the home, including blood spatter, displaced furniture, and objects bearing signs of impact. Dunn initially downplayed the severity, claiming he had only been too rough, but this story quickly unraveled when confronted with the children's profound injuries and the physical clues left behind. Investigators recovered the Nerf gun Dunn had misused, which still bore signs of improper use, along with a so-called foam mallet. Each piece of evidence fit into a puzzle depicting a horrific spree of violence. Under increasing scrutiny, Dunn admitted he had lost control, describing in detail how his rage escalated and how he inflicted pain on the children. His confession left no doubt as to his guilt. The question then arose of why he had access to children in the first place. Authorities soon uncovered Dunn's 2017 child abuse conviction, in which he had broken another 2-year-old's arm. That incident should have served as a dire warning to anyone considering allowing him near children again. Yet, somehow, he re-entered this family's life. Whether the parents fully understood the seriousness of his past remains unknown. In a small town, people often believe in second chances, or word of a conviction may not circulate widely. This revelation sparked public outrage. Neighbors were shocked that a documented abuser had once again found his way into a childcare setting. Advocacy groups demanded answers and immediate reforms to prevent others like Dunn from accessing vulnerable children. For many, this tragedy was not just about one man's cruelty but a systemic failure to protect the innocent. The case highlighted systemic failures and gaps in monitoring and communication that allowed a known threat to re-emerge. By Thursday afternoon, Dunn was arrested and faced charges that reflected the horror of his actions: aggravated murder, aggravated child abuse, and aggravated sexual abuse of a child. He took 2 happy, healthy 2-year-olds and destroyed them both. Prosecutors, well aware of the risk Dunn posed, successfully pushed to deny him bail. The charges underscored not only the severity of the assault but the prolonged nature of the abuse. The family and community watched closely as the legal process unfolded. With Dunn's confessions and compelling forensic evidence, the prosecution built what many saw as an airtight case. In court, Ayer's parents shared their anguish. Friends and extended family attended every hearing, their presence both a tribute to Aleister and a testament to the magnitude of the crime. This is not a mistake. This was not an accident. This was not anything other than intentional depravity, they declared. Last week, Dunn pleaded guilty to aggravated murder and 3 other counts of child abuse and sexual abuse. On Wednesday, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Dunn issued an apology, stating, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what I've done, and it haunts me every day. I hope that one day the family can forgive me for what I've done." The family did not find his statement believable, with Jonathan's actions described as the epitome of evil and a declaration that they would never forgive him for the damage he caused. Even as Dunn's guilt was established, one critical question lingered: how did this happen again? If the justice system was aware of Dunn's previous conviction, why was he free to be around children without any supervised restrictions? Child protection advocates pointed to the need for stronger laws that restrict or closely monitor convicted abusers post-release. They also stressed the importance of easily accessible public records so families could be fully informed before entrusting their children to anyone. Some community members questioned the role of background checks, mental health evaluations, and parole requirements, as it remained unclear whether Dunn had mandatory check-ins or therapy sessions after his 2017 conviction. Many believed the entire safety net had failed Aleister and his twin sister, with parents, neighbors, parole officers, and the broader social services system all playing unwitting roles in allowing Dunn to slip back into a caretaker role. For Aleister's mother and father, life would never be the same. They returned to a house once echoing with the sound of twins giggling, now an unthinkable reminder of the darkest night of their lives. Some close friends mentioned how the parents considered moving, unable to bear the daily memories, while others focused on helping their surviving daughter recover, sitting at her hospital bedside and later helping her through countless therapy sessions. This little girl, once a quiet observer to her brother's outgoing ways, faced surgeries, ongoing checkups, and a mountain of emotional healing. Experts indicated she would need long-term trauma counseling. Extended family members rallied around her, ensuring she would be surrounded by love and support even in her brother's absence. Aleister's short life left a profound mark on Roy. Vigils were held at the local church, where community members lit candles and prayed for the grieving family. Handmade signs bearing Aleister's name appeared along fences, urging passers-by to remember Aleister and protect children. Online, people nationwide learned of the case through true crime forums and social media updates, and anger, sadness, and confusion abounded. How could such brutality be inflicted on a child known for his bright smile and fearless curiosity? How could a convicted abuser so easily slip through the cracks to repeat his violent tendencies? Yet, amid the sorrow, there were glimmers of resilience. Strangers donated to help cover medical bills and funeral expenses, showing a community united in compassion. Child advocacy organizations used Aleister's story to call for policy changes, hoping no family would ever endure a similar nightmare. Though the legal process brought a measure of accountability with Dunn behind bars, likely for the rest of his life, Aleister's parents continued to grapple with loss. Every holiday, they faced an empty seat at the table where their bright-eyed boy should have been. Every milestone in his twin sister's life reminded them of what Aleister could have become. Still, Aleister's spirit lived on in the stories people told, how he loved to draw squiggly animals in crayon, chase bubbles in the backyard, and give tight hugs to anyone he met. To honor him, some family members started a local fund for child protection awareness, supporting legislative efforts to strengthen background checks on potential caregivers. The tragedy in Roy serves as a stark reminder of how quickly a trusted bond can shatter and how innocent lives can be lost when dangerous individuals escape the safeguards meant to protect children. It's a call to action for parents to remain vigilant, for neighbors to speak up if they sense danger, and for policymakers to close the gaps that let predators slip by. Aleister's life, though heartbreakingly short, galvanized a community to reflect on its moral responsibility to protect the youngest among them. His sister's survival stands as a testament to human resilience, even in the face of overwhelming cruelty. Though she will carry the scars, both visible and invisible, she also carries a legacy of love from her family and community, determined to shield her from further harm. This is the story of Aleister, a cherished 2-year-old boy whose boundless energy and sweet nature brought warmth to everyone around him. His promising future was stolen by an act of pure malice. May his memory spur us all to uphold our collective duty to protect innocent children and demand accountability from a system that must do better to keep them safe. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case in the comments, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'd also like to send a special thank you to everyone who has donated to support my channel. Your support means the world to me and gives me the motivation to keep making new and interesting investigations for you, my wonderful viewers. Thank you all so much.